apps. Please welcome Mary and our Amazon experts.
Okay, it's on. Great, it's good to be here. I think this chair is actually like the highest altitude that I've reached at Lake Tahoe, so. Before kind of jumping into our discussion, I wanted to give a little bit of context about where Amazon is in the marketplace. So as of 2018, Amazon is actually the third largest ad platform behind Google and Facebook. If you dig a little bit deeper into the numbers, Google and Facebook are still well ahead. But Amazon has obviously seen incredible growth over the last few years. And so we have a bunch of Amazon experts here to talk about how their agencies are working with Amazon and some of the challenges that they've seen and successes that they've had. You want to go ahead and introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your current role and how you use Amazon day to day.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Berry. I'm Senior Manager of our Amazon Programmatic team at Tenuity. Been with the company for about 3 years. And kind of where our company stands with Amazon is directly within my department. We manage all things Amazon, so I primarily just focus within the Amazon ecosystem. And I helped build out our programmatic team that focuses on just DSP management.
Perfect. Hello, I'm Sarah Cook. So, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. So, bear with me as we're going through this. But I am the VP of Programmatic Strategy for the Chicago office. So I have a team that works day to day on programmatic strategy for all of our clients in Chicago. We are unique that we sit with the media teams along with the social and search team. So it's one integrated team working together. And when we're putting together our programmatic media plans, we're looking at it more from an aspect of a full funnel approach. So Amazon would be one of the DSP platforms and data targeting sources that we tap into holistically across our accounts.
I'm Lyle Seebeck. I'm at the agency Ford PMX, and I oversee just kind of where we invest our programmatic dollars. So we're pretty DSP agnostic. We work, I'd say, primarily across the Trade Desk, the Google DSP, and then really Amazon is our third main partner. And so it's really figuring out for our clients when to use the Amazon DSP, and often it's using their data and their inventory to drive actions both on Amazon.com, but then also on direct-to-consumer sites.
Okay, great. And I think to get a little further then into what Amazon has to offer for those of us who are not experts in Amazon and maybe just found out that Amazon was the third largest ad platform a few days before finding out that they were going to be moderating this panel. Do you guys maybe want to talk a little bit about sort of how you've seen Amazon evolve over the last couple of years and what are some of the products available to your team? So.
Sure, I can start there. So I think Amazon really has evolved as an advertising platform, and it's been very exciting for the clients that we work with. Not just being able to focus on those passive bottom-of-the-funnel tactics to drive sales, but being able to start doing full-funnel advertising strategy by leveraging the wealth of data that's in the DSP. There's hundreds of millions of shopping behaviors that Amazon's been able to capture. And so being able to take our advertising strategy on Amazon to that next level and being able to re-engage customers and have loyalty tactics that we can put into place to shoot for subscribe and saves or get those repeat purchasers to come back, as well as overall awareness tactics, being able to tap into CTV and OTT and really bring a consumer in starting at the full funnel all the way down to making a purchase, both on and off of Amazon, has been super impactful to all the clients that we've been able to work with.
Yeah, just to echo on that point, we have seen a shift within the platform itself from moving more of those endemic advertisers that are selling their products on Amazon to doing more branding for people who might not be selling products on Amazon. So for the ones that we do sell on Amazon, it's that full funnel a lot of ASIN retargeting, product page views to really continue to drive that engagement, but taking it a step up and looking at more of those OTT channels to where we can, while OTT is not necessarily always seen as a lower funnel, but being able to then tie back if they've been exposed to an OTT ad through Amazon Fire and then get a report if they're new to brand or if they eventually made a conversion on Amazon.com. For anyone who's not selling on Amazon, I leverage them for their purchase-based data. Also looking into OTT, we had an advertiser last year that they are really focused, they're 18 to 49 TV buying audience, but their aspirational customer was really that younger millennial, and knowing that they're cutting the cord or cord nevers, really tapping into Amazon Fire TV as a complement for their linear and their current OTT offering and leveraging their data. When we did that, we actually partnered with Amazon to do a Kantar Millward Brown study as a part of the buy. And when we did that, we got the results back, and we had a 6% increase for purchase intent across the category, which was 2 times higher than the linear benchmark, as well as 2 times higher than the digital benchmark. When we drill down to the aspirational 18 to 34-year-old, that purchase intent increased to 12%. So that really proved out the story of keeping Amazon for that particular brand. And then going forward, we've taken it a step further and placed an Amazon Pixel on the advertiser site to when they reach the checkout or confirm order, to where we're then able to refine our audience targeting and build out people who have, when we first ran it, it was Amazon Prime customers, people interested in sports, gaming, things of that nature, lifestyle segments and market segments. So we've actually been able to see people who are purchasing what actions and audience segments those align with within Amazon to then further target and segment to that consumer.
Yeah, and just adding on, I think I want to emphasize the measurement piece. I think it's really interesting how it can be difficult for us as we're trying to attribute credit from, a display ad that was seen on, say, Safari on my phone to then going on Chrome on my laptop computer and just linking that impression to the final conversion online. And so, something that Amazon has that is really interesting is just being able to use the login data that they have and, deterministically track the media to the final result in a way that's getting harder and harder for a lot of other platforms to do.
And I think actually kind of related to that, I'm curious about, given all of these different products that Amazon has, how has your agency kind of decided to split up the way you use Amazon? So I know, for example, we use Google at my agency, but we have kind of, there's a search team using the Google search products, and then we also have DV360, which is sort of the purview of the programmatic team. Have you found that kind of centralizing Amazon, where you just have kind of like an Amazon expert across, the CPC model and the DSP is the best way to do it? Or do you find that it actually makes sense to kind of, slot it into channels that it performs similarly to? And I guess just so that I don't always start with you because you're sitting next to me, Sarah, Lyle, one of you guys want to jump in?
In our agency, we still have it separate. So the search team still handles a lot of the e-com focus tactics, helping build out the storefronts, things of that nature. And then from the programmatic strategy side, we're really working on more of that mid to upper funnel, but we do some of that retargeting and product listing ads, things of that nature. But it's unique because we do sit alongside the search team with our product or our agency model, to where the search and the programmatic and social team all sit together. So it's constant collaboration from the pre-planning process to putting together the media plan and execution. So we're all sitting together and planning holistically.
And I would say, coming from the Tenuity side, we do keep Amazon kind of its separate side of our department, just like we have social, Google, our CRO team. And specifically for endemic brands, we will have an analyst that'll be managing the search side, and then there'll be someone from my team that'll manage the programmatic side, but they work closely together. So essentially, we consistently have to have that collaboration because you can't be running upper funnel tactics and not supporting it with what you're doing on the search side. So to what Sarah was saying, definitely a ton of collaboration. And when we do have brands that we're working on that are working within multiple service lines within Tenuity, again, regular syncs, we're all doing strategy together to make sure that we are supporting each level of the funnel, both on and off of Amazon, to really tell that cohesive story and move the needle for the brand. Amazon doesn't sit in a vacuum, so you really do have to look at it holistically.
Yeah, I think it can be a struggle because even on the Amazon side, they haven't unified all their different products and their different teams yet. And so like we'll have our media planner and they're interacting with kind of the brand lead on the Amazon side, and then I'm interacting with the programmatic support team, and then our search team is interacting with the Amazon support from that product side. And so it is partially like if Amazon starts to unify those services, it could get a lot easier. I think for the time being, what we try to do is unify the practice as much as we can. And so what that's really looked like is kind of starting a marketplaces team who kind of oversees holistically what are the options out there, not just Amazon, but also eBay and like how those impact the business. And then kind of under that team as well, starting to flesh out our practice of helping manage, you know, for example, the third-party seller central management. So actually for example, the product detail pages on Amazon, making sure they hit all the best practices so those pages are showing up at a top search result from an SEO perspective.
And so given that Amazon is playing in all of these different channels, I'm curious as to how you have found performance to stack up, relative to, does the CPC kind of perform similarly to search? It's sort of that lower funnel. Does programmatic perform, similarly to, a media math or another kind of display type of programmatic?
Yeah, I'd say for retail especially, so it's not as if you're doing something crazy transcendent and then making your display buy now perform like a search buy in terms of last click revenue or anything like that. But what I would say is a lot of our advertisers are very low funnel focused, our origins being a search agency. And so, for example, in Facebook, let's say you're running DPA and you want to kind of move up the funnel into prospecting, you'll start with like that 1% lookalike because that is going to perform the best in terms of using that Facebook data effectively. From there, you can kind of get comfortable moving out into prospecting. And so for Amazon, the thing that they're able to do that for retail other DSPs aren't always able to do is help use their lookalike, use their in-market data to take an advertiser who hasn't traditionally been in prospecting at all, show them you can drive performance with prospecting, and from there, then we can move on and talk about what the next step is to driving growth in other areas.
Yeah, just to echo that point, I would say if you're comparing it to, from a, mid to upper funnel tactic, it performs very similar to other DSPs that we run across. I think the big selling point for Amazon is being able to use their shopping data. So it's part of a more holistic buy to make sure that we really want to use that data, or previous to them opening up some of their inventory on Fire TV to other platforms, being able to use, tap into that OTT inventory.
Yeah, great. And so I guess I feel like we've been pretty nice to Amazon so far. I mean, I assume that they're listening at all times. So, but right. So as we're talking about the idea of using Amazon to build kind of top funnel audiences and then hopefully bring them down to maybe convert in a different channel, I guess I'm wondering about some of the challenges that you've actually faced with Amazon. I would assume that attribution is a big issue, but I know they've got competition rules, and so yeah, what are some of the challenges with running campaigns on Amazon?
I would definitely say attribution is one of them, and I can definitely touch on that a little bit more. But I also think that when Amazon launches new products, they don't really do a good job of educating advertisers on the point of the product that they're launching. So they'll say, hey, we have DSP, we're moving to a self-service model. And then coming from an agency perspective and the more tactical side, we understand what that means by building an awareness campaign, doing a consideration drive, and that it's not a ROAS-focused tactic. But Amazon will launch these new products without educating advertisers and sellers about that. And I think that definitely creates some friction when it comes to putting out a strategy that will make sense and having the client understand why they should follow through. So one big pain point coming from Amazon is definitely having to prove concept. So I would say that's been something that's a little frustrating. But definitely attribution. And I know that Amazon is actively working on this, but a lot of brands who are running on multiple different DSPs and having off Amazon tactics, they do wonder, am I over-indexing? Am I competing against myself? How are we combating this? And I don't think that Amazon has really gotten there yet to do a great job to turn that black box into a glass box and give more visibility into that. And I'm hoping that that's something that will come down the line eventually.
Yeah, I would just echo that point. The attribution is challenging, specifically when you're trying to tie back to other channels. Another area is also challenging, like for connected TV in particular, they can't accept a VAS tag yet. When it launched, you had to run the raw video file with 1x1 tracking tags. When it launched, I asked timing on when they'd be able to run a VAS tag. They said early 2019. I'm still waiting for when we're going to be able to run that VAS tag and constantly follow up with them. But just having more centralized reporting is important, especially if we're running on OTT and we're not necessarily, it's an off brand or off Amazon seller that we can't get that data back.
Yeah, and I just say one of the more bigger frustrations for me has been, in general, who can use their data, when can they use their data. So, like we were talking about the competition policies, they compete in so many different verticals you don't always realize. And so, if you're a direct competitor with Amazon, you can't just use their DSP to drive directly to your site. And so, it was a surprise to us when we learned that one of our clients in the financial vertical actually competed with Amazon, so we weren't able to run through there, which you wouldn't expect. And also the type of things you would expect. So like when we first started out running, a huge strength of their data was taking people who've searched for your brand on Amazon, targeting that segment, and you could drive them to the D2C site just with display banners across the web. So that has been sunsetted, and their data policies are always changing. And so I think it can be tough to project, like in 6 months, what is the role of the DSP going to play. It's kind of, let's take advantage now of what we can take advantage of, and like we'll figure out a new strategy in 6 months.
And I guess another thing I would add is Amazon's advertising platform has definitely come a long way as far as ad console, but the DSP is super clunky. It's not user-friendly. And I think that the platform itself has a long way to go. As far as building out a ton of line items, we have a brand that we just had to do a massive back-to-school campaign for, and it was over 1,000 line items that you have to manually put in the base supply bids, and you have to go in and build the audiences for those, and then add the creatives. It took a ton of effort from my team to get that knocked out, all for a 2-month-long DSP buy on Amazon that's going to end. So I definitely think that's a huge pain point too, especially for a lot of brands like retail. It's going to be a lot of line items, especially if you're running full funnel tactics. So that would be also something that I can't wait. And I like fingers crossed that at least in end of Q4, beginning Q1, we start to have some better API access. So at least our team can get in there and build out a product that would help alleviate some of these pain points for building these larger campaigns.
And I guess so kind of building off of that and, with these challenges, like what makes Amazon worth it? Like, have you seen, any particularly surprising performance? I think, the video is a great example where you see, really strong performance, but you're able to measure off of that. And I'm wondering if, across which other platforms you're finding Amazon very effective in certain categories.
Absolutely. Since we've been able to, get in there and start launching full funnel strategy with the DSP alongside what we're doing with search, it's been extremely impactful. There's a large luxury beauty brand that we work with, and they were starting to see a little bit of a plateau just by running regular PPC on Amazon. So we were able to start running an awareness drive, start running retargeting that we weren't able to do before, as well as loyalty tactics. They started to see their subscribe and saves increase, and building more brand awareness for their brand. Definitely the luxury beauty space is really competitive on Amazon because you're directly competing with mass. So it was super important for us to be able to leverage the DSP and those new static creatives to be able to tell the brand story to get a consumer to convert on Amazon. And we were able to see that plateau basically stop. I mean, within 1 quarter of launching it, we saw about a 40% growth before the previous quarter not running upper funnel tactics and always on strategy. So we've found that very successful.
Yeah, and I think it's really the new to brand, and that's something you can measure on your D2C site, but it's also a metric that's available through Amazon reporting. And so especially as we talk about incrementality testing and trying to really prove out the value of the media, like, of course, you still have to design your test the right way. Maybe it's a geo-lift, maybe it's the Red Cross ads, like we've been talking about. But the good thing is once you've been able to prove out some incrementality with testing, then you have this great suite of KPIs with new to brand that you can then optimize to, which on a recurring basis is going to keep your media much more efficient than just optimizing to like regular ROAS.
Yeah, and from the video standpoint, we've actually been able to roll out, based on the success of this one client in the Chicago office, I would say we've been able to roll out the Amazon Fire TV across the majority of the advertisers that we're running within the Chicago office particularly, and know that the New York and Boston teams are using the case study that we did that I walked through, that we've developed in conjunction with the client to really drive the adaption in those offices as well.
I mean, yeah, I feel like that all totally makes sense with some of the like very impressive statistics about Amazon that I found. I think something like 43% of teenagers, it's their favorite shopping site. And I guess the people who visit Amazon per month is larger than the population of Russia, which is instantly like 149 million. As an analyst, I had to throw in some numbers, you know.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting too. Like when you hearing from my colleagues in search how it's becoming a place that people are using to start their research a lot more often now. And so I'd imagine, like we all know, it's really strong lower funnel, like who's gonna purchase tomorrow, who's immediately in market. But I would imagine they're going to move towards building out the suite of, you know, how do you target for people who have just become brand aware and try and take them from maybe we know your brand exists, we know we're looking to I need to buy this now.
I think another thing to note on that is Amazon is more of a discovery tool. It takes on average 25 days before a consumer does a search on Amazon to make a purchase. So having a strategy in place that is going to continue to show up and re-engage the consumer to purchase is super important. And also because of marketplaces like Amazon, everyone is so brand agnostic. And someone will buy something 1 month from one brand and then they don't really care who they're going to buy it from again next month. Just do a quick search, click and buy. And so I think that's also super important for brands to keep that in mind as well, that I think the stat is like 1 in 10 categories on Amazon have high repeat purchase, the others don't. And so you're definitely kind of not maximizing and keeping your brand awareness and staying top of mind without running these upper funnel, more brand building tactics.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I actually feel like it feeds very well into our next question, which is about best practices. So, you know, what you've seen from various campaigns that you've run, you know, around, you know, whether it's creative or, you know, frequency or anything like that. Is there anything that you've kind of developed when you're launching a new campaign that you know you want to get right?
Sure. I would say you definitely don't want to be running any aggressive brand building upper funnel awareness tactics if your products on Amazon aren't ready to be advertised. You have bad reviews, you don't have good pictures, your content looks bad. You definitely want to make sure all of that's buttoned up before we're starting to run these more aggressive tactics. But also, like one of the biggest learnings that we had once we got started managing within the DSP is let Amazon tell you which audiences you should be targeting. Like take that data-driven approach. It is really exciting when you can go into the DSP and you can see all of these potential lifestyle segments you can target that you might feel like makes sense for the brand and for the line item and for the product that you're wanting to advertise. But I would say start small and scale out. There's a ton of reports once you launch a campaign where Amazon will tell you where that overlap is. And so I would just say don't kind of throw your money at just picking every audience that seems like it would make sense, because you're probably going to end up wasting a lot of ad dollars when you can let Amazon kind of guide you through that and where you should be folding in additional audiences.
I would echo that point. We work very closely with our Amazon, whether it's our agency contact or the retail portfolio leads at Amazon. We talk to them both when we're setting up the plans and making sure that our targeting, we'll come to them with our idea of targeting, and then they'll help us refine that before we put the final plan together. Additionally, I would say if you are going to be running any sort of brand lift study, whether it's across video or display or even OTT, make sure you connect with Amazon right away. You're going to want to make sure that you build enough time to get the approval for the questions from the client, the competitors over to Amazon to make sure that you have that question and study ready to go. That study ideally would need to launch at the same time or before that your media launches to make sure that it's a clean test for the brand study. So I would make sure that you build in enough time for that when you're setting up those campaigns.
Yeah, and I'd say the data and inventory kind of speaks for itself when you're running, and that's why we use them. We use them because they have data that no one else has. But where they maybe lag behind a little right now is just the sophistication of the actual technology. And so we're hearing beeswax, and I mean the trade desk has it too. It's bid factoring and how you're able to curate your bid based on geo and based on device really easily in the platform. And that's something that Amazon doesn't allow for as much. And likewise, even the pacing algorithm. So oftentimes, again, just I think, back to their policies on who they partner with, but also just back to where the tech is at. So we'll meet with creative rejections a lot more often in Amazon than other platforms. Lookalike audiences will kind of vary in scale day to day a lot more often. So maybe one day we're pacing in full, and then the next day a creative gets rejected, and you don't spend over the weekend. So best practice for us is where you can maybe trust the trade desk to pace a lot more evenly, and it's gonna spend what you expect it to. Keep a closer eye on Amazon.
And I actually wanted to follow up quickly, Sarah, on something that you said about working with the rep. And I think, so what I'm curious about, because I was reading a lot about how Amazon is going from more managed to more self-service, if you found any differences in kind of the customer service available to you, over the past couple years.
Yeah, so Amazon has really taken an active stance with our agency in particular about wanting to move as much as they can to the self-service model versus the historical managed service model. In doing that, we've actually gone in, the programmatic team and the media team and Amazon, gone to the teams and the brands direct about shifting that money from managed service to self-service. We've actually done this in a couple of different accounts of where we've been able to do that. One more endemic to Amazon, to where we're selling on site. When we did that, we actually saw an increase in performance and campaign. We exceeded the overall KPI benchmark by, I think it was 40%. But when you look at from the performance from when it was a managed service to campaign to a self-service campaign, we actually, the number was staggering. We improved performance by 190%. From taking it from managed service to self-service. And that was, we worked with Amazon to copy over the exact same campaign setup that they had from a managed service buy into our self-service DSP seat. all the targeting, all the audiences were moved over. We worked closely with the platform DSP team on weekly optimizations to make sure that we were, doing the best that we could. Very collaborative. I'd say that from a programmatic standpoint, we have more points of contact because we have our DSP contacts and we have the retail teams that we can tap into to get more of that holistic retail focused insight, as well as the DSP more technical support.
And just to tack on to that, Tenuity has a very similar model where we work very closely with our teams at Amazon, so both with the account executives that were running managed service before, retail teams, and whenever we do collectively make a decision that it makes sense to move a brand over from managed service to self-service, there is a ton of support to make sure that that is a smooth transition and that we are able to rebuild those same audiences and put those into a self-service direct entity account, so that way we can kind of take over management and not have that drop-off. But I think one thing that's important to know, and I'm sure that won't be a surprise to anyone in the room, that Amazon wants everything to be self-service. They build these products, and sure, they're going to keep it in-house and test it, make sure that nothing is going to break, and they want to make sure that they're not kind of giving a product out there that's going to be mismanaged that people won't pay to use. But essentially, their idea is to kind of build it, get it to where it's just good enough to be a little dangerous, and you can manage it on your own. And then they want you to make it better because it takes work off their plate. They don't have to hire someone else, and they can just keep innovating. So I think that's also something to keep in mind when dealing with any Amazon product that launches.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to just making it self-service and more automated from a customer service perspective. So when we first moved self-service with Amazon, we had one main DSP rep, and still do, but pretty much all of our little troubleshooting requests had to be routed through him, and so we'd just be like pinging him over and over, like, hey, can you help us with this, push this through? So recently, especially with the smaller agencies, more independent agencies, or just smaller seats in general, they've really pushed towards more of a help desk model where you're emailing an alias, and then you're going to get some Amazon support. Who's it going to be? It's more back end. You're not really sure, but I think it's been pretty effective, and like the turnaround times have been pretty good for us.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I think we should have about 5 minutes for like audience questions. And so that is, where do you see Amazon going from here? I think the projections that I was looking at, they're expecting it to keep growing, 50% plus year over year. And so do you feel like you have any ideas about kind of the direction they seem to be going in?
I definitely see Amazon moving to a more collaborative model with other DSPs. I think with them opening up their inventory for Fire TV to the Trade Desk is super exciting. Although they're not going to be handing over transactional data yet, I do feel like this is an initial dipping the toe in the water to see how they could take that, which I think would bring a lot of more opportunity for advertisers with attribution models and with how we can leverage DMPs to really tell the full story for how each advertising platform is impacting each other. So I definitely think that they're moving in that direction, and personally really excited to see, going into 2020, what that looks like.
Yeah, I think they're also going to focus on innovation of being able to target across different products. So I know that they have released an alpha or a beta to run across their music inventory through Alexa devices. So I think that they'll continue to innovate and have things, of that nature, whether it be streaming audio ads or, they've done stuff with different utterances. I know that's pretty nascent recently or still, but brands are starting to tap into that as well.
Yeah, I think from a high-level perspective, right now Amazon is figuring out how do we build demand for our advertising product. And so one way that you see them start to do that is with opening up their inventory to the Trade Desk, because they know that advertisers use the Trade Desk. So if we let our OTT demand go through there, people will start to see the value of our inventory. So likewise, other areas, I think they're going to focus on other areas where advertisers are having trouble points. So some of that is the reporting side of it. but really trying to remove those roadblocks so people really think, okay, now I understand the value of what Amazon provides. From there, I mean, it would be interesting to see kind of which way they take these different products. I think one super interesting example to me is Amazon Publisher Services, or APS, which is kind of their header bidding code, which publishers can put on their site, and it basically hosts the auction. So the benefit from an advertiser side would be that you're paying Amazon to use the DSP, but they don't have to take an exchange kind of cut. So theoretically, going through APS, you could, as an advertiser, spend more money on media, just cutting out middlemen, and from a publisher perspective, kind of raise the CPMs that you're charging. So I think with that, if you look at just in terms of other Amazon historical examples, like you see AWS, that's a very profitable product that they've kind of scaled across the entire ecosystem, regardless of whether you sell on Amazon. So if they could take a product like APS and really kind of scale that across the entire publisher ecosystem and get huge adoptions, like maybe they could turn that into a profitable option on its own. On the other hand, maybe advertisers see the value of APS, not every publisher adopts it, and could be used as a tool to maybe only allow to advertisers who are driving to Amazon and really incentivize people to come back there. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of as they build demand, then which way are they going to go? Are they going to be more open, or are they going to go back to being more closed again?
Well, I guess whether we want to or not, we will find out. Any audience?
If you guys don't have questions, please shut me up because I've got like 10. Go ahead.
Great stuff, everyone. It was pretty fascinating, and I feel like I also heard a lot of reasons why maybe we shouldn't use Amazon, because there's still a lot that needs to be worked out. Especially Jordan, it sounded like the amount of hours that were spent building out those line items wouldn't necessarily make it worth a 2-month campaign. Is that true? I mean,
I would say it is worth it, and the campaign is running very successfully. And we're in a really good position at Tenuity that we do work really closely with the developers of the API, and we're able to work with them and let them know, hey, this is a pain point. We need to be able to do these larger builds, and it needs to be automated. Like, where are bulk uploads? How can we work this out? And these are all things that are going to be coming down the pipeline. We're lucky enough to have a large enough team that is able to scale and to tackle these larger builds. But I would say that coming in Q1, I imagine there's going to be some more automation available to alleviate that pain point. Great question.
Good morning. This is great. And since I'm moderating your roundtable, I'm just like you. I don't know as much about this as I should. But do we really think that Jeff Bezos...
Andrew, tell him who you are.
Okay. Andrew from Cicerone. Thank you. Do we really think that Jeff Bezos wants to be in the television business with Fire TV, or is he just trying to connect your Prime account directly to spots so that essentially turning television advertising into direct response?
Yeah, I would lean more towards the latter, especially because as we buy OTT, we're usually trying to set up all of our deals directly with the owners of the content. And so rather than going through an aggregated deal, like we're going directly to ESPN, to Turner, because they really are the ones who are owning the most premium distribution rights. And so I think the interesting thing with Amazon, especially as they have started to open up their inventory more, it's like we were already buying Fire TV through the trade desk because we were going directly through Turner. So I think just because there are so many television networks and so many players who already own their own rights, there's a lot more opportunity in trying to use it and trying to positively impact the other areas of their business.
How much conquesting is possible within the Amazon inventory? And I'm especially curious whether they'll allow you to do any conquesting on their own branded products.
So you can run conquesting campaigns at the ASIN level. So you can essentially select a group of ASINs that you want to target, including Amazon's ASINs for their own private label brands, and target those with programmatic ads. It's something that they released a few months back, and I mean, it is.
How successful has it been? Have you tried it?
Yes, of course. Whenever it was launched, a lot of clients are really excited about it, but it kind of goes back to the education piece and the KPIs for running those conquesting campaigns. You're not going to be looking at ROAS. It's amazing if you can get a sale, but at the end of the day, what's most impactful is that you took someone that was already had the intent to purchase another brand to buy yours. So from that standpoint, depending on the client's goals, if they're okay with that and not hitting a specific ROAS goal or dropping their ROAS goal to gain that market share, then it works really well. And we're running several tests just to see what makes sense and leveraging additional data. So looking at a market basket analysis and seeing what competitor products that we are getting compared to, but then they end up not purchasing ours and purchasing that brand, or what's frequently being purchased together. Maybe it is a competing brand, and that's who we're going after. So again, taking a data-driven approach and not just going after the obvious competitors, but really seeing who on Amazon, which competitor products that they're buying.
Where are the budgets coming from? Are you pulling from your other digital display and video channels to go into Amazon? Is this coming from other budgets, like shopper marketing?
That's a great question. It really varies by the client. Typically, for some clients, we'll have like one big media budget. Other clients have a separate budget that they want to use just for Amazon and moving their product there. And a lot of it is working with brand teams. Larger companies, they'll have like your advertising team and your brand teams, and they're goaled very differently. So it has to make sense to pull budget from each one to reach their KPIs.
Sarah and Lyle, I'd like to hear both of you, what you have to say on that one.
Yeah, so from our perspective, so it depends on the KPI of the campaign. So we're DSP agnostic when we're setting up our plans. When we're looking at video specifically, for one of my clients in particular, my video budget is split between OTT. My budget is split with our linear TV team. So I'll work very closely hand in hand with our linear team on what the overall split should be, what they're doing, if they're doing anything direct with OTT, what's going to be programmatic, and then from programmatic, if I'm going to leverage all of those dollars for Fire, or if I'm going to do a portion towards Fire and towards other OTT connections.
I think it comes from all sorts of budgets. So for us, like a lot of it comes from the traditional display, like we maybe would have run prospecting with Google, now we're going to do from Amazon. And I think also now, just as OTT is proliferating more, like you're starting to be able to make a case to kind of take from traditional linear budgets, and then you can shift that into Amazon OTT, for example. And thirdly, if you're working with more closely with the wholesale teams, and like they're working with AMS for search, or for us if we're trying to drive display back to Amazon, like oftentimes for the clients we work with, that budget lives with a totally separate internal team.
Hi, Molly Alvarez with Gravy Analytics. Do they have a solution to solve for shared Amazon accounts, and what is that?
Shared accounts as in?
Meaning like my husband and I both share our same Prime account, and I know, families across state lines share accounts. So what is the solution for that?
Great question. So they don't. And that's typically why we steer away from starting out a campaign using any type of demographic data. Like if they say primarily they're shoppers, or they know that if a brand knows that their primary shopper is a male, then we still probably wouldn't launch a campaign only targeting men. Because of that reason, Amazon doesn't say like, okay, this is a shared account, it's a combined household. So that's why we probably wouldn't start with that targeting strategy, because we aren't privy to seeing that data or being able to split out the audiences based off that.
There's a lot to discuss here. We're going to do this in a round table in about 15 minutes. Mary, panel, thanks. That was really insightful. Thanks so much.